Gerald's Game, directed by Mike Flanagan in 2017, movie based on a book written by Stephen King in 1992. Main characters and actors. Jesse Burlingham, played by Carla Gugino. Gerald Burlingham, played by Bruce Greenwood. Raymond Andrews, known as the Moon Man in the film, played by Carol Strucken. Tom, who's Jesse's father, he's played by Henry Thomas. Sally, who is Jesse's mother, is played by Kate Siegel. And young Jesse, who is played by Chiara Arella. The first main character is, and she's the most important, is Jessie Burlingham. Jessie's the main character of the movie. She's also the widow to Gerald Burlingham. Her past life includes having one parent growing up, and she was a lonely child, only having two friends. The film reveals that at age 10, Jessie started being sexually abused by her father, this causing the divorce of her parents. Jessie, however, did not recover from the incident and still struggles with the haunting memories. During the early stages of the movie, it also becomes clear that she now knows she is not happy in her marriage and she sacrificed wanting a family for Gerald's paycheck. She also has become aware that she married a man just like her father. Her husband, Gerald, he's a rich and well-known lawyer. He's the husband to Jessie, obviously. Um, During the film, the audience becomes aware of his past and his interest. At some point in his past, he got off on an accusation of attempted rape by paying the family. When they are alone, it also becomes clear that he is a very wicked man, and he often fantasizes about this. One of his villainous quotes being, "Everybody's got a little corner in there somewhere, a button they won't admit they want pressed. Year after year, I barely gave you a glimpse of mine." He's also a control man who married Jessie as mainly the reason of her being to be his trophy wife. Raymond Andrews, the Moon Man, he's a figure that is tall and scary that shows up during the nights of Jessie's hallucinations. He's a tall, deformed man who reveals a bag of various bones and trinkets. She sees a bloody footprint later that night. Jesse's hallucinations tell her the man is real and that he will kill her if she doesn't escape. The next night, when Jessie escapes, her hands are bloody and she almost passes out. This same tall figure appears that night, and she hands him her wedding ring instead of taking her life. And he puts it in his trinket bag and he disappears. Jessie, after recovering, sees a man in the paper like this, and he's on trial for necrophilia and grave robbing. This proving that the man made of moonlight was not actually a hallucination of her past haunting her, but a real person. Tom, Jesse's father, we don't know much about Tom from the film other than the flashback of him abusing her when she was 10. We also know that he was a bad father and often physically abused Jesse's mother. Sally, Jesse's mother, during the movie, we don't learn a lot about Jesse's mother other than she never stood up to their father when he abused them, and she was also naive and didn't notice her husband sexually abusing their kid for a long time until Jesse told her. The psychological concepts in the movie, one of the main ones that has a lot to do with the movie is trauma. That's one of the most important concepts used in the movie, and I think that it accurately represents real trauma, and it shows just how hard it can be to deal with. Multifactorial causation is also a concept that is used in the movie because in the movie Jessie thinks that the things that are happening to her is because of what she's done to Gerald by using him for his money. But in reality, it's the horror from her past that is making her hallucinate and talk to herself. Personality is another concept that is explored in the movie, oftentimes by her telling herself to give up, basically by her hallucination of herself, telling herself to give up because her personality has been affected by Gerald's terrible relationship. Part 2 concepts in the movie would be motivation. In the movie, that's the main reason that she survives, because she has always relied on self-motivation to survive in her past situations. And insight is also something interesting in the movie, because they use it in the movie when Jessie finds out that the Moon Man was actually a real person and death wasn't visiting her at night during her hallucinations, and she actually made it out on her own will. A summary of the plot is, in short terms, Jessie and Gerald go to their away vacation home that is miles away from anyone. Gerald has given the employees that take care of the place a week off so they could have some alone time. Gerald has a bright idea for them to explore his fantasy, and he handcuffs her to the bed, and once they get started up, she tells him no and kicks him off. And his chest starts hurting, and he actually has a heart attack and falls on her. She obviously panics and pushes him off, and he falls and hits his head and starts bleeding. A few hours pass, and a stray dog from outside has actually found his way into the house and starts chewing on part of his arm and rips a chunk of meat off and eats it, as she fails to scare him away. Gerald then stands up and mocks the dog for biting him, as Jessie looks on the ground and sees his dead body is laying there. So she's actually hallucinating an alive version of him. Summary of plot part 2. Her and her hallucination of her husband go back and forth, and then he informs her on how useless she is, that she has sat there for hours doing nothing. She simply then dislocates her thumb and slips out of the handcuffs and stands up mocking him, but then looks back, telling herself, the one who is still tied up, that it's that simple. So at this point, Jessie has hallucinated another version of herself who has escaped, and her dead husband alive again. Jessie falls asleep at this point and wakes up in the middle of the night and sees the man made of moonlight. She tells him he is not real, and her reincarnated husband tells her he is and that he's going to kill her. And he starts calling her Mouse, which is something that her father called her that she didn't like. And it triggered a flashback of her dad calling her Mouse and sexually abusing her as the two watch the solar eclipse. She has this flashback that when her mom asked her how the eclipse was, she broke this glass with her hand. So she wakes up remembering how she cut her hand, and she peels back her skin and allows herself to escape the handcuffs, and she leaves, and she eventually is saved. The rating, I give it a 10 out of 10. It's a Netflix original. I think it's a very good movie. I rate this as one of my top of the list crazy movies. This movie will keep you on the edge of your seat and keep you interested. I recommend it to anyone. Thank you.